This Toglet is a product that's been developed by Interact, and what they wanted us to do was to get used to the process, to build it, as Matthew said, from the ground up, to see how we can develop it. And as we go along with them, we're going to be adding new features onto that with Interact. We've centered it toward the Paintsville tourism. It like has the different pods that show the different areas of interest in Paintsville, like the Paintsville Lake, Mayo Mansion, Dawkins Line Rail Trail, and this is the information about Paintsville and the location. We'll be adding features like polling, geofencing, and beacons as we go along. We have a settings menu where you can put like local events of the area, of what's going on, which these are not customized to Paintsville yet, but like Apple Day, the events be going on at Apple Day, the different aspects, like the haunted trail where you walk around in the fall, or the Halloween trail, and just let people know what's going on in the area. When the user would click on like the Mayo Mansion, tells some background story about it, and it really just, it helps, like what Paintsville tourism is interested in, it would help people that come into the area that's never been here before, to give them an idea of what's going on, what can I do, you know, what places are good to see, where's somewhere to eat, and so on.
TeKY is an app that's actually in development at Interact right now. So within 3 months, we went from not knowing how to code at all to being able to emulate an app that a major software development company actually creates. So I think there's something to be said about that.
What about the back end of it? Can you talk a little bit about how the way it works with a user like who purchases the app, like the company or the tourism department who purchases it, has a full back end server that they can just go and change basically anything they want to.
Right. Essentially, TeKY is a content management system, and it's a framework that allows us to go to any number of customers, create an app for them quickly that they can then manage the content within it themselves and update it and make changes to it. One of the largest problems with deploying applications that don't use a content management system is when you make a change and it's hard coded, you then have to resubmit it to the store, to Apple Store, which takes 7 days to get approved. And so you are disconnected from your end user. But with a content management system like TeKY, our customers are able to make changes and then their users are able to see that instantly. So if a restaurant, for example, which was part of the tourism of Paintsville here, decided that they wanted to have a lunch special, they could make that decision early today, make the change, and then have a push notification sent out. Everybody who would be in the area would get a notification of what that would be, and that would change the direction of those users and where they went. So a business is able to make a decision on the fly and then reach out to a mass number of users and affect how they interact with that business. And that's one aspect of the tourism. We also want to be able, with tourism, to reach out to folks outside of our area and attract them to come in. TeKY can also be used to reskin and redeployed for other customers as far as employee engagement goes. So you would deploy this for one business, and then the users would then be the employees. So you could then communicate with your employees and direct the things that they needed, such as different events that would be coming up, work schedules, human resources, that was the word I was searching for, sorry. Human resources, documents, and so on. Schools, colleges like this one, obviously the end user would be the students. Teachers will be able to log into their portion of TeKY, update class information, which then would trickle down to the students.
So like if I was on this campus with the TeKY app, and I say, okay, I've got a class in building F, I don't know where building F is, it would be able to lead me to it.
So when we got a hold of the TeKY framework, that the folks in Louisville office had already been working so hard on. We immediately saw that there were gonna be some other features that they were already planning for, and some things that we wanted to add on, like geofencing, iBeacons, and some employee directories or directories of people. And so we wanted to take those things and bring them on into Toglet. And one of the ideas that we have behind this with tourism is to create a single app that could be used in multiple cities. So as a visitor or vacationer could download the app, visit Paintsville, and all the information about Paintsville is in there. But if I move to another city, like Pikeville, for example, the information updates, and I get all of Pikeville's information. So instead of having to convince me to download 100 different apps, I download one, and then it changes based on where I go.
What did Mayor Paintsville think?
Well, when he heard about it, he obviously wanted us to speak with his tourism director. Some of my thoughts and ideas on this originally came from a meeting with Andy Linton out of Pikeville. Some of the features and things that he had originally wanted and asked for. And so we've tried to bring them into here and try and move that direction.
So this content's new content since the Investor Days, Ankur, right? You didn't see this when you were here for Investor Days, did you? New content. So y'all did a good job of getting ready for the meeting with the director. Have we scheduled that yet?
We have not. We've been working, before we schedule that meeting, of course, we want a fully working demo and to work with folks at Interact and get some things integrated so we know exactly what we're presenting and that it looks right before we.
Do we have Matthew Sturgill's beacon that he went and bought? Matthew's out sick, that's why I asked that.
iBeacons don't work on the simulator.
Okay.
They have to be on a device.
Point two is the Paintsville Tourism every year. They come out with this book of the different activities. I found out why they was interested in this, where they could have an app that they could just update as they chose to.
Some good friends of ours at Vantage Point Advertising, they helped produce this book for Paintsville. They used to do Pikeville's as well. That's an extremely expensive book. Whereas replacing that with an app that you can update daily, multiple times a day. Whereas they do this once a year or twice a year, I think in some cases.
So
Twice.
instead of walking into the Ramada Inn and picking that up on the counter, I walk into the Ramada Inn and I get notified, do you want to download this app and see the latest and greatest? We got to come up with one of those little kiosks like you see and everything with all the little things in there.
Right.
That's what we'll have to go do, right?
And
But-
get a
but
good
all
call
that
from
in-
the Ramada Inn for downloading that.
Yeah, all that printed information is expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it could be put here.
It's got target advertising as well.
Targeted advertising.
It's like
Right.
you're making, it'll be advertising for the city of Paintsville, not for.
Well, it's not just for the city. It could be, the tourism department has a relationship with the businesses
Yeah,
that are in that area. So those businesses would interact with the tourism department, and we would interact with the tourism, they would interact with us. So, once we have it set up, restaurants, hotels, activities, sporting events, all of those things would be able to be updated in here. So if I live here, I get to know what's going on. If I'm away from here and I'm looking for something to do for the weekend, I can explore what's out there and then make a decision about what I'm going to do with my weekend and my money.
Ankur, any questions on that? What you see or what you want? Would you like some questions about the back end from Mr. Noble here? Yeah, he listened.
Man, mostly I'm trying to think of some. You answered a lot of them. So what is the business case for someone who, your friends at Advantage Advertising, to maybe use this instead of their magazine? Is there a business case for it?
To use the app instead of.
Instead of, what would it be? You see it as a compliment? You see it instead of?
It really
How does it
depends
fit
on.
into their strategy? What do you think?
Well, obviously, this would work, the app would work instead of the book, because, the printing cost for these books is where the largest expense goes. So that's, as far as Vantage Point's problem, is they're having to spend a lot of money on having these things printed. And then distribution for their customer is always a problem. Whereas an app, obviously, we make it once, And then the cost of updating this and maintaining this is significantly lower.
How do they
And-
know that how many of those books get picked up and responded to versus would they have a better ability to know that the app is being used and acted on?
Obviously, the application would have real-time tracking and metadata in it, so we would know what type of users and when they were using it, what they were clicking on, as opposed to the book. Now, the book generates revenue once, whereas the app, let's say a new business comes into town, he's going to wait 2 years to get into the next book, or could we get him today?
Also,
As
as a
opposed to-
user, I would rather have the app on my phone than carry this book around.
Yeah, but you're a techie geek now.
Another wonderful feature that we can work into the app that certainly won't work with the book would be guided tours. So when we talk about geofencing and iBeacons, every town has history. And so we would be able to lay a map of the town over with certain points of interest on there. Those points of interest would then guide you, and when you get there, an iBeacon would pop up information about that historical moment and then guide you on to the next one. So as a visitor, I get a much more rich experience when I go using an app as opposed to a book.
Toilet team, great job.